last presentation of the day will be by Erin Cooper, and it is titled Get Off the Field, Persisting in the Face of Opposition. Erin is the Philly girls baseball coach and will be sharing her story as well as some initiatives to overcome local opposition. Erin, thanks so much for joining us. You can take it away.
All right. Jessica, thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you all for being here today. It's been a wonderful, fascinating morning and into the afternoon, so thanks for sticking it out through the end. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and kind of take us through just a little bit about our story and some of the things that are happening with Philly girls baseball. So first, and let's make sure all my technology is working here, a little bit about me. I have two sides of my closet. One has suits and dresses, and the other has baseball gear. When I'm not coaching baseball, I am an architect and I work in the field of healthcare design. But outside of that, I spend quite a bit of time coaching baseball. So I'm the founder and head coach of Philly Girls Baseball, which really began in 2019. I'm a coffee lover, baseball lover, anything having to do with scorekeeping, movement. I love it. My little story is that I coached boys since 1997. I started coaching in a summer camp almost by accident, loved it. And anytime anyone needed a hand, I was there as a volunteer. I coached my son when he was young. And I never really coached girls until I was coaching my son and saw several opposing teams having girls in their batting order. And we would play against them, and they'd always bat at the end of the order. And their coach would say, you know, nice swing. And it was a junky swing, and it would drive me nuts. So in one of the leagues I was coaching in, I just got together with the other coaches and I said, hey, look, if you'd like, we can run some extra hitting sessions just for all girls. No matter what team they're on, it's rec league. Let's just do that. They'll have more confidence and they can continue to play on their teams, but we'll do extra all girls hitting sessions. So that's really how Philly girls baseball started. It really grew from there to the point where now we have about 60 girls ages 8 through 14 and a few outside that age range. In addition to being head coach of Philly girls baseball, I'm a parent to two multi-sport athletes. I have a son who's a freshman in high school, who's a cross-country runner, baseball player, and basketball player, and a daughter who plays baseball and basketball and soccer. And then lastly, I'm a spouse to a computer science professor who had never played baseball in his life and is a gracious volunteer who is just going on this adventure with us. So that's a little bit about me. He does the snacks, I do baseball. So I'm going to take us through kind of 4 parts here. Just a brief overview of Philly girls baseball. I'll talk a little bit about some emerging barriers that we're seeing in the realm of youth baseball and some value differences that we've kind of identified between girls and co-ed or boys programs. I'll then go through a few strategies that our programs use to overcome some of that opposition, and then just walk you through a few resources and initiatives that we have publicly available on our website, as well as some that are in development. So as we go through this, I am going to have a lot of slides that have photos of kids. I always like to be careful of that. All these photos are on the public realm. Everyone has, they're either in our program or signed waivers and permission. Periodically, you'll see a little blur. That's because we want to be really careful and respectful of that. So again, just a little more history about Philly girls baseball. We are a 501c3 nonprofit based in Philadelphia. We have a blend in our program focus. A real gem of our program is this local, no-cut, multi-age practice and drop-in game opportunity. Any girl can sign up at any age, regardless of their level of experience. And we're one of the few programs where every year we get a few, 11, 12, 13-year-old girls who have never played baseball. It is intimidating to sign up for Little League if you've never played before, but they can come and play with us. What we do is we're creative about ages. If we have a new player, we'll have them play with younger kids until they're able to play with players their own age. So we do it by skill, not necessarily age. In addition to our local no-cut program, we do have highly competitive tournament teams. We participate in Baseball for All tournaments and have had quite a bit of success. as well as some local tournaments where we play either against all girls or boys. So our mission is to provide women and girls with more opportunities to coach and play baseball. And we really specifically include coaching in that aspect of our mission. It's to provide mentorship to players and become mentors for ourselves and the next generation, and to cultivate an environment where girls are challenged, supported, and accepted. With us, they're baseball players. So I'll show you just a few photos. This is our 2023 10U team of Baseball for All Nationals. And we had a very specific focus with this team on communication, and they fantastically executed it. Our goals weren't necessarily to win the tournament because we had a wide range of experience levels on the team, but our goals were really to teach girls as baseball players how to communicate with one another and start to make independent decisions as early as the 10U level. Some of our other focuses are really on pitching. The first time we brought an all-girls program together, we had 9 local girls in the city of Philadelphia. They came from all different leagues. And we asked them, okay, who pitches, who catches? The only player who had ever pitched before was my own daughter, who was 8 years old, playing up on a 10U team. And she had pitched 2 innings at 40 feet. So we were taking a team to a tournament and we didn't have any pitching. So fundamental to our program is we do have every player learn to pitch and learn to catch. They might not all do that in a game, but we pretty much give every player exposure to those positions because we found that there were just some unconscious biases and they weren't getting those opportunities in their home leagues where they were playing. So this is our 2023 10U Baseball for All Nationals team. They're carrying our banner with one of our slogans, which is where girls belong in baseball. We have participated in Title IX. Here they're taking an Ussie with Oz Sailors, and then on the right, that is Coach Sabrina with us. And so a lot of our focus is we want to make sure that we're giving the players exposure to women in on-field positions, whether it's finding female women umpires to umpire our games, and we flex our coaches so that we can make sure as many players as possible have exposure and experiences with different women coaches. Our 14U Maria Pepe team, and I'll get into some specifics with that team in a little bit. And then earlier this morning before the lunch break, there was mention of the 50th anniversary of the Pawtucket Slaterettes. They were phenomenal hosts in their first tournament, and this is our 12U team that won the championship there against a team from Canada. So what's really fascinating is that from the outside world's perspective, we're a pretty buttoned up, really successful girls baseball program. But when we're home, the experience is a little bit different. We do not have a home field. We get bumped and lowest priority out of just about anyone. So the image on the left is the field where we started. It's a Philadelphia Parks and Rec field. We are able to work with them and use that field, but we often have to use times that boys or co-ed teams don't want use of the field. That doesn't mean don't play on the field. They sometimes reserve it for rainouts or delays for extra time. And even if it's not in use, we can't use it if they have it reserved. We have some great collaborations and relationships. So sometimes a league will tell us, hey, we're canceling practice. If you want the field, you can have it. So in the image at the left, this was a March practice. There are snowflakes coming down, and the team that had it thought it was too cold. So we went out there at about 38 degrees and we held practice and we said, all right, we're not going to use our wooden bats. We're not going to use our metal bats. We have one wooden bat to share so you don't ruin your bat. We'll do mostly fielding and wear a sweatshirt. The image at the right is an empty parking lot under the overpass of I-95 in Philadelphia. And we do hold some practices there. We get creative, we set up cones, we play wall ball, but we really just want to get creative about where we can find places for girls to play. We have some great relationships with other leagues. This practice is with PESA, the Philadelphia Athletics, have a field in West Philadelphia, and they generously allow us to use it when they're not. It's a field that is relatively well groomed. It has lights, wonderful place for us to be when we can get there. That is not always the case. we've had a lot of opposition locally, and it culminated last year in 2022. And if you look at that date, July 14th, 2022 is the week before BFA Nationals in Mesa, Arizona. We don't have that many opportunities to practice on a field, so this was a really important one before Nationals to get some field time. And this text came in the middle of our practice from 7 to 8 p.m. And I want to be very respectful, so I have redacted who it came from. It basically says, see an email from, and it lists a coach of another team. We had access to the field at that point in time, and this other team had a pop-up game that was coming up the next week. And basically they were telling us that we should vacate the field and let this boys team have practice because they had an added game to their schedule. So that was what was in the email. And the text basically says, I'm specifically asking you to leave the field or go elsewhere. And then it was the initials of that team is asking that you stop practice. It was pretty upsetting and almost felt unsafe, but as our board, we decided to kind of take stock of the situation. And in life, it's always a good idea to seek first to understand, then to be understood. So what we decided to do is have a series of interviews and meetings to really try to understand what's the problem here. Why is there so much opposition to a girls' baseball program forming in the city? We just thought this was a good thing, and it was developing, growing, and suddenly we were reaching so many barriers, we just couldn't find spots to play. So what we did is we had our group of coaches, volunteers. We asked all of our current players, what organizations do you play in? And we reached out to the leaders of those leagues and organizations and asked them for meetings or interviews. And our goal was we wanted to find out, where do we have affinity and what are the barriers and what's kind of the background to this organization? So we met with 9 area baseball organizations. 4 of them were Little League, 2 in Philadelphia, 2 in the suburbs, 2 in Ripken leagues, an independent league, and 2 travel programs. So we often sent, if they allowed us, we would send a representative to their board meeting to get to know them a little bit. We had one-on-one meetings, and we invited 63 teams from a database of area coaches to attend a get to know us session. Only one program attended, but we did have a great audience with the 9 leagues who we reached out to. And as I go through this, I want to take a tone of, we really had some eye-opening information through these meetings. And I think at first our impression of these barriers was that we were being targeted and we were unwanted. Over the course of these meetings, I think we've come to understand that there's a lot more nuance here. And these leagues and organizations are really just trying to do what they believe is best with their mission. And we're simply in conflict with one another. So from taking notes from these meetings, what we really identified is that there's truly some value differences between co-ed and boys baseball programs and what we were trying to do. And I actually have quite a bit of empathy of the situation that some of these leagues are in, although I do believe it's not right for our organization to not have equitable access. So some of those value differences, stability and longevity. We heard over and over that local leagues are sustainable because they have a strong pipeline and a reliable pipeline of volunteer coaches. And those are typically dads coaching their sons. We heard a lot of concern on local leagues about fear of a new program, fear that we would be taking their players because their overall numbers are lower. There's been a loss of players in the last 10 years with the growth of travel ball. And then just, other sports they're really interested in maintaining their programs. And if girls want to come play with us, they're going to lose some rec league numbers. There were a lot of organizations that were proud of the girls that they have in their rec leagues. But when we had conversations about travel and all-star teams, we really found a strong belief that they felt their all-star travel teams are most successful when the same kids play together from age 8 through 13. So that means there's little to no room for a new player or a girl to be selected if she's not in there when she's 8 years old. We also found a lot of value on considering baseball a rite of passage and a pastime from father to son, and a lot of emphasis on the adult experience in Little League or travel ball organizations. And then lastly, a bit of ambition. So in Philadelphia in 2014, Taney did go to the Little League World Series, and throughout the region, there is a goal among many, many of the teams to do that again. So they're really focused not just on their recreational programs, but also on developing really strong competitive travel and all-star teams. So we also asked them their perception of us, and what we learned is that it was way off. They really didn't know what we were about or what we were doing. Their initial perception was that all girls need to switch to softball anyway when they turn 13. And so why would we support something where your girls are going to play for a few years and then they won't be allowed to? So we did make a lot of headway in kind of changing that perception and educating our local league organizers and board members that there is a women's national team, that college women are playing baseball, women are in MLB coaching and managing positions, and also kind of dispelling that notion that softball and baseball are the same sport. Again, we heard that they perceived that our program was trying to poach their players. And so we did quite a lot of outreach to explain to them that our program is pretty much supplemental. Most girls continue to play Little League and come together with us. And then lastly, when we were asking them about opportunities for girls to be selected on travel teams or how they did their tryouts, we did hear a little bit of you're taking away spots from boys if girls are playing, and a lot of pressure on field access. In the city of Philadelphia, it is an urban area. Funding overall through Parks and Recreation is not that high. Parks and Rec is phenomenal and wonderful, and what they do for the city is amazing, but field use is in high demand. So if people have use of fields, there's a little bit of a protective aspect where they don't want to allow newcomers to use fields. And then lastly, there was a very big disparity in terms of coaching philosophy. And this, again, I redacted it, but this is a plea for coaches from one of the local leagues, and it says, consider signing up to coach when you register your child for spring baseball. The job pays in high fives, ear-to-ear smiles, and quite possibly becoming a legend in the eyes of your kids' friends. So this is a message that's appealing again to a lot of ongoing volunteers that they need for their organizations to be successful. But appealing to that kind of desire on the part of an adult to be a legend. It's less about the kids. So there was a lot of perception that our program was exclusive and that we wouldn't allow men to coach. What if they wanted a dad to coach their daughter? So we did a lot of outreach about kind of unwrapping that perception, clarifying that in our program, we do have men who coach, but part of our mission is to increase opportunities for women. We use a flex coaching model, which means our practices are multi-age, and we usually have a group of coaches. We divide players up into stations, and they will work with all the different coaches. And on any given tournament or game, we'll identify a different coach for each team. We do that on purpose so that players, almost every tournament, we need to have or want to have on-field women coaches. So we might have men and women, and we'll move them around on different teams so that we always have that. I do have a player in our program who is 10 or 12U, but sometimes I will coach the 14U team and I don't coach my child. We do that for all of the coaches because we also believe that there's benefits to learning from coaches who are not your parent. That is very different than the kind of tradition of Little League. And so their perception of our coaching approach is that it's just unfamiliar and they just don't agree with it. There also was a little bit of an assumption that if our program grew, we would not be able to grow a coaching staff and that we would be relying on their current men or boys co-ed coaches and we would be taking them away. So a lot of it was about kind of protecting. All that is to say, at the end of this, we developed some amazing partnerships by level setting, where we are versus where they thought we were, who they thought we were, and vice versa. We did learn that there are some organizations that are just different, and we might not be able to overcome them. So we took about 4 strategies to be persistent in the face of this opposition. So in some cases, we just accepted differences and decided, we're not gonna win that battle. We won't really collaborate with that organization in particular ways. We might in others. We recommitted to certain things in our mission that we thought were important, such as women coaching. And I'll get into a few things in a moment about our strategies for coaching. We also decided and really identified that we have to be a little more flexible in order to be safe and also be supportive of the players. And lastly, more outreach and transparency. So a few kind of awesome things that we've been doing that we never would have done had we not done this. We have a safe and productive collaboration with 2 organizations. One is Del Val. They own a series of fields in South Philadelphia. They are not owned by Parks and Rec, and they do have a Little League and travel team organization. We found in our interviews that they were generally really supportive of what we were doing. And once we explained that we weren't trying to poach their players or their coaches, they were really excited to collaborate with us. We hold a lot of free clinics for girls. This particular photo is one that's led by the Montclair State University Women's Club baseball team. They are about an hour and a half away in New Jersey, and they graciously donate their time and do a fall clinic and spring clinic with us every year. So we were able to use the Del Val fields. Normally, they need to charge for them, but we were able to collaborate with them, make it open to their players for free. And they allowed us to have a really awesome series of clinics on their fields, and we still have a wonderful and rich collaboration with them today. The next thing we did is we reached out to the Phillies RBI program. Phillies RBI runs a series of citywide and area-wide clinics. They do baseball and softball, and they were very receptive to what we're doing. The first time we signed our players up, they did baseball and softball on the same day. You fill in a form, we clicked, we had about 8 players, they all clicked baseball, but there is a field for gender. And they showed up at the first clinic, and they call out all the players' names, and their registrations were just missing. They just automatically took the girls and put them in the softball clinic. But what was really great is since we had had that conversation with the Phillies, they were able to just clarify it right away. They said, nope, your girls go play baseball. So they did a baseball clinic with the boys and men's group. We see Milt Thompson, who's a Phillies alum, signing autographs for 2 of our players there after that clinic. Next, we really decided that we should think carefully about what fields we play at. When we can get the Del Val fields for free and work that out, that's wonderful. But we also worked with Philadelphia Parks and Rec and found an unused field called D. Finnegan that's in the Grays Ferry neighborhood of Philadelphia. When we first got there, the field was not really in playable shape, but it had a lot of potential. This is one of our first practices at the field. We couldn't quite use the infield yet. It was like the surface of the moon, and we didn't have grooming equipment. But there we are in the outfield having a practice on a baseball field. The image at the right, those are the lights. They are actually shot out, and we worked with Philly Parks and Rec, and we're in the queue to get those replaced. One of the reasons why we were able to get this field is Philadelphia is a very interesting city. It's a wonderful city with many rich cultural neighborhoods, and this field is in Grays Ferry, which is kind of where the arrow is going. This is a map of household income of the city. Our program draws from a wide, diverse range of income. And for us, we really need to be at fields where people can have access to them on public transportation. At the same time, we do want to be in safe fields. And so this location was, it's a gem of a neighborhood where they're starting to really invest in a lot more youth programs to make that neighborhood safer than it has been historically. And it's really on its way. So we were very welcomed in that neighborhood to come and use that field, which no one else was using at the time. So we installed a home plate. The image at the right is actually of the fire department. They are scaling the fence because we didn't have keys yet. So to get to the field, we had to kind of go around a crack in the outfield. We also didn't have access to water. So one of the things we had to do is we rented tillers to till the infield, but we couldn't wet it. So the fire department has an engine location that's actually right under the tree. You can kind of see the 3 garages, and they had a blast. They came over with their fire trucks and they wet the infield for us. So we were able to finally have a playable field. And we did our first Jamboree game there on Memorial Day this year. And it made the cover of the Philadelphia Inquirer. And the headline is, "Organization provides a league of their own and nurtures a dream." So we were really proud to finally have a field we can use and have a safe place for our players to play. From there and through our conversations with the other leagues, we also realized that a lot of our outreach and education should just be more transparent. No one really understood what we were trying to do with a girls' baseball program. So we committed to having more co-ed events, having more information available publicly, and including as many of these leagues as we can. So a few examples of those. We believe we are the first and only girls baseball program to host an MLB pitch, hit, and run competition. We did that in July of 2023, and that's the image at the bottom. Interestingly enough, we had some rain dates, and so all of our girls had a scheduled game and scrimmage. So when we did MLB pitch, hit, and run, our own players couldn't really participate. One age group could. So the makeup was actually more boys than girls, hosted by Philly Girls Baseball. But we did get a lot of girls who we had never seen or knew about in the city of Philadelphia who came out specifically because they felt more comfortable coming to a baseball event that was run by a girls and women's organization. We also do some co-ed drop-in games. And then last winter in 2022, we did what's called our on-season challenge. This was a series of at-home workouts. They're like 10 to 15 minute just body weight workouts, things like lunges, box jumps, etc., that players committed to doing every day in the month of December. And we had a lot of just fun competitions. So this was something that was a virtual event. It was co-ed, and we had 40 participants ranging in ages from 7 to 42. And it was about 70% girls and women, but 30% were men and boys from some of the local leagues that we partner with. Next is player-initiated contact. This is something that we realized was a differentiator in our conversations. As coaches of a girls' baseball program in particular, we don't need to physically touch players when we coach them. The image at the left is a stock image. If you just put in baseball, this is one of them that comes up. And it really is embedded a lot in youth baseball culture to have coaches physically touch or move a player to position them in the batter's box or hold their bat. And we got some feedback that the girls really liked playing with us because we didn't do that. And some of their little league coaches did. So we really kind of thought about that, and we're in the process of making this a formal policy. And that policy is that coaches won't intentionally make physical contact with any player unless it's initiated by the player, except for medical or first aid. And what that really means is that if a player wants a hug or a high five, they can absolutely have one. They should just ask for it. Coaches, we work on mirror me techniques so that we don't need to grab a player by the hands or by the body. We can, as coaches, ask permission to touch an object like a bat, but not the player themselves. And then we encourage our coaches to come on out of the dugout, put your hand up to give a high five, but wait for the player to give us a high five. We also communicate with our parents and players in our early season meetings that if they don't want a high five, that is absolutely their choice. And really, there's nothing wrong with that. So a few great moments after one of our clinics. 10U player just asked, can we have a group hug? And they asked and they came in and had a group hug, and it was really special and beautiful. But you can kind of see that around the periphery, there are several players who want to be part of it. And they felt comfortable not really joining the group hug, but being nearby. And that's exactly what we were trying to achieve. Our older players really didn't need it, didn't want the hug. I know we are coming up on time, so I'm going to breeze through in 30 seconds, just one more resource that's available. And then if we have time, we'll take questions. We are in the process of generating a no coaching from the sidelines resource. It's a rule that we have in our program for parents. And at first, when we adopted that rule, Baseball for All adopts that rule. But when we started to really enforce it, we got quite a bit of resentment, but acceptance. Parents were really confused about why we didn't want them to say certain things. So this is a work in progress that is scheduled to be posted on our website by the end of the month. We have an entire table of kind of common sayings that parents say to their children while they're playing baseball. And instead of saying that, some recommendations of what they can say. And we started to explain to them why. Which of these comments are giving conflicting feedback, which things are mechanical interventions, and which things are interfering with player communication development. All of these are available on our website. We have made it a commitment to have our warm-ups, some of our practice plans, our winter workouts, these resources available to the public and for free. So if you go to phillygirlsbaseball.com/resources, you'll find all of these. In our rules, we do have our player and parent code of conduct, and those are also really interesting to look at too. So given that it is time, I will stop and see if there are any questions.
Yes, we definitely have some questions for you. Catherine wants to know if you see stronger support among dads with daughters getting involved.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I always like to answer questions if I have survey data, but I'll answer this one anecdotally. We have, or I have seen a lot of challenges with dads with daughters. Being new to the world of girls baseball, I personally underestimated that when girls are playing in their normal leagues or their travel team, they are relying on a parent to be a vocal advocate. For them to be treated equitably in their boys' travel team, they often have a very strong vocal dad who is pressuring the coach to make sure that their daughter has an absolute equitable opportunity with their boys. When we bring them all together in an all-girls environment, we have a team of 10 to 12 parents who are just accustomed to having to be that strong voice for their daughter. And we have an onboarding process where we try to let them know that we want them to ease off of that. When they're with us, they're just a baseball player. We don't want or need them to have that strong advocacy. We want to give the girls an environment where they can learn to advocate for themselves. So we have had some definite growing pains with that. But again, I always like to think about, where is it coming from? It's coming from a place of wanting what's best for their kid and transitioning to a different baseball culture.
Yeah. Maureen wants to know if you have plans to develop a handbook of creative constructive persistence. I know you mentioned the website.
Oh, that's a good one. I hadn't thought of that type of thing. Our approach has really been to make our baseball resources publicly accessible. I really think that what we did in terms of our it's almost like a listening campaign. It's not that revolutionary, but what it really did was myself and some of our other coaches, we had to essentially come to accept the fact that our presence was an affront to other people because they didn't understand. So I don't think we have any intention to do a persistence handbook. I do think there are those who are probably better and more experienced at it than we have, about probably in the realm of politics and social justice. There's probably some more things that we can learn from them. Yeah.
Leslie asked, have others now become interested in the fields you worked on to make playable?
Yes. So we actually share Finnegan with a recreational football program, and we share it quite in an amenable way. Every once in a while, there's a schedule collision, and what's really great about it is that we're a group of girls. When you look at us, while we do have a diverse representation, a good half of our players are white girls, and then this football program in Grays Ferry is predominantly Black boys. And when you look at this field and you see them practicing in the outfield and us practicing in the infield, it's actually a really interesting kind of dichotomy of what Philadelphia is all about. We are having much more success collaborating with those types of organizations who face the same struggles we do about field access. So since we've cleaned it up, we have not had other baseball organizations, but we have had football using the outfield. And they're very respectful.
Are you actively accepting volunteers, or how can others get involved?
Oh, yes. So we are always looking for additional coaches, additional volunteers, and players. In particular, as we grow, a lot of our coaches, we try to give opportunities to high school and college students. By default, that means their availability isn't as consistent. So if you know any women coaches who are in the vicinity of Philadelphia, please send them our way. Any volunteers, be it from, public relations, websites, anything, we're a small group of volunteers, so we can use all the help we can get. You can email info@phillygirlsbaseball.com. Other ways you can help. We sell t-shirts and they help our program. The one on the left in our question slide, these are actually my kids. That's my daughter. She's wearing our Girls Belong in Baseball t-shirt, inspired by that first team where no one was a pitcher or catcher. So you can buy a t-shirt and that financially supports us. But really, volunteers are always welcome. Jessica, I think you're on mute.
You're right. Thank you. Do you have any ideas on how to take these ideas into other cities or areas of the country?
Great question. I think in me sharing this today, we are still in the kind of cusp and like learning process. Over time, as we kind of do another round of these, I would love to kind of expand this and actually get more data behind it. We usually do surveys of our players and really want to do some surveys of our area leagues. I do think this kind of topic would be relevant to other groups around the country, and I'd love to either collaborate or work on some sort of paper and survey about this. I do think across the country, there's, baseball is such a wonderful sport. I absolutely love it. And I do hear all around that it's changing and evolving with travel ball, and local leagues are desperate to survive. And I think our findings are really that it's coming from a love of baseball and desperation to keep their programs, that they're in opposition to us. And I can only imagine that that's relevant to others. We're sort of choosing to not interpret it as full targeting of girls.
Maureen shared your link to the shirts in the chat. Marlene asked, do you network with other groups?
Yes, and we network with other groups, and I actually want to take a moment and give a shout out to what I'll call our sister teams, which are the Boston Slammers, the Pawtucket Slaterettes, Tri-State Trailblazers, New York Wonders, DC Force. We're one of the newer programs, and when we first started, it kind of was organic, and all of a sudden we had a tournament team, and every single one of those organizations were helpful. We got a draft of a parent code of conduct from the Slaterettes. We got laundry tips from the Slammers. We do jamboree games with DC Force all the time. And so that that has been an incredibly powerful kind of Northeast support group among the girls' baseball programs.
Great. I don't see any other questions. I'm gonna turn it over to Leslie. Thank you so much, Erin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Erin. I don't know if you got a chance to see all of the comments and the questions and just the
Still getting there.
yeah. What you're doing is incredible, and it's the thoughtful approach and the way you've really considered all of the different kinds of things that are important is really impressive. And I think you're going to get a lot of sales of t-shirts because everybody's like, oh, I have to get that t-shirt, myself included. I looked at it and said, oh, new t-shirt for my collection. So,
Yep.
But thank you again, and we're really glad that you were able to come and share this with us. I want to say thank you again to everybody for all of your participation, for giving up parts or all of your weekend to join us. Thank you to all of our presenters, our panelists, to our hosts, to everybody who came. We really, really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you next year around this same time for our 6th annual virtual Women in Baseball Conference. So you can mark that down, know that that's the plan. And so please reach out with interest. We're happy to talk to you, but thank you, everybody. Thank you to our great hosts here at Rockford, to all the folks at SABR and IWBC. We really, really, really appreciate it.